This episode is brought to you by Midwest Night Watchers, found everywhere on your favorite podcast platforms.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Piercing the Veil. We got a very special guest tonight. We got John Stasko Jr., a paranormal investigator who has a lot of experience out in the field and a lot of great tales of his experiences that he's going to share with us tonight. I'm looking forward to get in there and talking with him. And I'm glad to see everybody's popping in and chat. Let's say a quick hi to Elena and Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot, Paranormal Pixie Laura. You got Elena or Elena, I'm sorry. So I keep saying we because usually Jane's with me, Chero Sounds, but she has a little sinus and hay fever thing going on because of the pollen and the weather. So she's sitting this one out. So I'm going solo tonight. So you're stuck with me. Sorry about that. So anyway, I'm looking forward to talking to John, and we're doing a special time at 4 p.m. We're experimenting with different times. Our show will still be on Sundays, and we're just trying to see if 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. will be a good time. And we're testing out the waters during the week for guests who would like to come on during the week instead of being busy on the weekend. So we're working through this. So be patient with us. And I see Sober Carper popped in. Condensed Reality. So thank you, Gemini Moon. Thank you guys all for showing up. So stay tuned. We'll continue doing our Sundays as normal. And every once in a while, we might pop on during the week, or maybe we'll make it a regular day. We're not positive yet. Most likely it might be Tuesdays instead of Thursdays because we have friends that pop on Thursdays or their shows, and we don't want to overlap each other because we know a lot of people in common in our chats and our groups. So we're still working on that. So having said all that, let's bring John up and we'll get going. Hi, John. Welcome.
Hey, how are everybody? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you came on tonight. I've been looking forward to talking to you.
Well, likewise. I had a lot to tell you about tonight. A lot.
Good. We got a while. We can go as long as you want. Well, not as long as you want because you say you can talk forever. So I don't know about that, but
oh yeah. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll try to keep it to about an hour and a half. This way, I'm going to try to get in as much information I can to your viewers and stuff, and I hope your viewers have questions of me as well. And please don't be afraid to speak your mind or share your experiences because I'm not here to judge anybody. You know, I've been doing this a long time, and believe me, I've heard it all, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. So whenever you're ready to start, I'm ready to go.
All right. So everybody in chat, if you have a question for me or John, it's probably most likely going to be John instead of me. Please put it in all capitals so I can identify it right away, and we'll try to address it, and I'll bring it up on screen. And other than that, I'll let you guys just communicate between yourselves and say hi to everybody in chat like normal. And be sure to ask questions. If you have questions, bring them up, or experiences, let us know so we can talk about them. So where should we start, John? Should we start with your your Bigfoot experience or a UFO, or where would you like to start the story at, or your experience of your life?
Well, I'll tell you this. First of all, I like to be known simply as a paranormal investigator. I don't want to be known simply as a Bigfoot investigator because I am not. I am a paranormal investigator. I investigate everything paranormal. That I have seen Bigfoot 4 times in my life, that goes without saying. And I have witnesses, with me. But I started out doing this because I've had UFO experiences as a young boy. And I can, my earliest recollection, as I was saying, is when I was 5 years old. I saw a UFO with my father, who was a chief of police. And since then, I've seen him 10 times in my life. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy, and I expect our members, your members to like, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, well, the reason is I get out there and I look. But I want to say this before I begin on anything else and get into depth. Anybody that tells you, I am not an expert. I am on 14 or 15 different Facebook groups, and I am listed as an expert and an administrator in many of those groups. But the expert designation is something that Facebook puts on somebody who's more or less of an experiencer, or has more experience than the average person. In my opinion, and anybody that tells you differently is lying to you all and to themselves. There are no experts in this field. I am simply an explorer of the unknown. Okay. If an expert, by definition, is somebody that knows all about the subject and tell you definitively what something is or isn't. I can't tell you that because I don't know. I've been doing this for over 56 years now. Okay. And the more answers I feel that I get, for every one I think I have, 10 more crop up that I don't know.
Right.
So I don't believe anybody that tells you that they're an expert. And if anybody comes to you and says they are, they're lying and they're deluding themselves. Okay. Because we're all seekers of answers and explorers of the unknown. As I said, I got interested in UFOs when I was very young. Saw my first one with my father. The next one I saw was, I was outside in wintertime. It was on a Christmas break. And my dad had bought me some walkie-talkies. I begged him I was about 12 years old or so, 13, I think I was. And Christmas break. And so he worked till midnight. So I was outside at night. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And my dad got off at 11, as I said. I was talking to my friend in another place on my walkie-talkies. And I'm facing this hillside. And at the top of this hillside is a huge barn. Okay. And the barn's pretty big. And the reason I bring that up is because it gave me an idea of the scale of the thing that I saw that come over top me. Now, as I'm facing this hillside and just getting ready to sign off with my friend, I ducked for some reason. I looked up. Something came from behind me. And it was shaped, I'm going to try to show our viewers, shaped like this. Like a giant triangle in the front, but also was a triangle on the back. Now, based on the size of the barn that was above, where it was hovered, stopped over top me. To this day, by the way, I don't know why I stopped and looked up, but because it came from behind me. This thing, by my estimate, was about 800 feet long by 500 feet wide. It was white like fluorescent type light, and there was appendages hanging down from it. And it hovered over me for about 10 or 15 seconds. When it did, it ejected what was like a teardrop-shaped object out the back, which I thought was gaseous at first, but it wasn't. It swung down like a pendulum into the hillside. Then it zipped off without a sound. Now, I was shocked. I was a little guy back then. Like I said, I'm big now. I'm 6'4". Back then I was maybe, I don't know, 5'2", 5'3". I grew after I got out of high school. Anyhow, so I walked in the house. My mom said, "What happened?" So I guess I was white as a ghost. And I told her, and she says, "You're staying up till your dad comes home." So my dad came home, and I told him, I said, "Let's go up there now, Dad." He goes, "No, we're going to, not tonight. We're going to go up the next day." Now, my younger brother, Frank, and I had other siblings. I was the oldest of 5. The only ones I told was my mother and my father and my brother, Frank. So we go up the next day. Where that object that came down the back of the teardrop, that hillside was completely torn up. To this day, nothing grows there. Nothing.
Wow.
Okay. So I go back to school after that. I was shocked, but I didn't tell anybody else. I didn't say a word, because this wasn't discussed back in those days like it is today.
Right.
Okay. it was a taboo subject, as I was saying earlier. So I go to school, and about 2 weeks back into school, back in those days, our high schools were like, today you have security has to meet you at the door. You have to have special permission to come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Back then, people would just walk in and out or whatever. That's just the way it was. Remember, I graduated in 1970. So that's been a while. It's been a long time ago. Anyhow, so my principal, his name was Strickler Pollock, came to me. I was in study hall. And he said, Johnny, 2 men are here to see you. And I said, so we had recruiters coming from colleges and other places, to ask us if we wanted to go to their schools and stuff. So I just assumed that. I said, where do you want me to go? He said, I want you to go to your home room because it's empty right now and it's in the front of the school. I said, okay. So again, I was a little guy, maybe weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. Okay. I weigh 220 now. Okay. Just so you know. But anyhow, so I go into the home room and there's 2 guys standing there dressed in black suits, black ties, white shirts, black fedoras, black shiny shoes, sunglasses, pale complected, about 5'8", 5'9", which still were taller, way taller than me. So I sat in the first chair figuring they're going to talk to me about going to college. No, that's not what they did. The first thing out of their mouth was one would talk and the other would finish the sentence. What did you see on this date? If you don't tell us, we can put you to death. We can hold you incommunicado. We can put your family in jail for the rest of their lives without any rights. We can put them to death. I mean, I'm like stunned. I don't know what to say. I'm just a little guy. I'm by myself with these 2 strange guys. And I said, one would start the sentence and the other would finish it like they were the same guy. They never took their sunglasses off, by the way, never. So about that time, my homeroom teacher, his name was Pete Petrov. He was a football coach. He was a big guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5", about 350. Big guy. He come walking by the homeroom, which is his homeroom. He sees me sitting there because the door's open. I look at him like this, and he sees I'm looking scared. So he walks and says, what's wrong, Johnny? I said, these guys are threatening my life and my family's life. So he looks at these guys and he says, what are you guys doing to this boy? What are you doing this for? And they looked at each other and without a word, and they walked past him out the door. So Pete told me to get behind him, which I did because I was scared. I mean, now I'm not afraid of anything.
Right.
But back then I was. And we followed them out through the front doors where the parking lot was, and they got in their car. It was a Lincoln Continental with Air Force plates on the back.
Oh.
And they shot out of there like a bat out of hell. Okay. My first and only experience with Men in Black.
I was going to ask you that if you thought there was actually somebody investigating UFOs, or did you think they were Men in Black, but you just said you thought that.
No, they were Men in Black for sure. The way they were dressed and the way they acted. But the strange thing was they were so pale complected, like, I mean, you get paler in the wintertime, but not like almost chalky white. And there were dark sunglasses, and we were in the school. So that just threw me off. Well, I told my dad about it, and we tried to look up he tried to find out who they were and stuff. And being a policeman, all his leads went nowhere. Okay. Anyhow, so let's move forward. That summer, I'm playing softball on this big slade dump with about 30 other people. In fact, my brothers and I were just talking about this last night. And broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer. And I'm up to bat, and this UFO starts flying hilltop across the river, but level. Now, what I know of astronomy, I know meteors don't come in exactly horizontal. They come in on some kind of angle. Okay.
Right.
So everybody's saying, look, Johnny, a meteor. It was about the size of a car. And about that time, it made a right angle turn and took off.
Yeah.
Okay. So I reported that to our local newspaper, the Brownsville Telegraph, which is Brownsville, PA, which is Fayette County. They call me Young Scientist Stasko. Anyhow, but we had a rash of sightings around here because we had power substations around that area. Now, let me move forward even more. May 30th, 1990. I have a Jeep CJ at the time, and I had built this thing because I got to go off-road too. I'm like kind of an outdoorsy, kind of geeky kind of guy at the same time. My first wife was pregnant with our 3rd child, and we had 2 other children in the back of my Jeep. I always carry a camera. This is before the advent of cell phones, 1990. So we're taking a ride May 30th, 1990 at 9 p.m. on this ridge called California Ridge Road. I got to the high point of this ridge, and I'm showing my kids and my wife the constellation because I had the top of the Jeep off, right? So my wife says, we know what those are, Johnny. You told us that before. What's that behind us? About 300 feet away, down below from where I was on the high point of this rise. There was almost no houses up here at the time, by the way. Now there are. There are people who build houses up there. But anyhow, back then, no. I see these lights behind some trees. So my first thought, it's an off-road vehicle, because I off-road lights on my vehicle. You know, we had kids up there and stuff. They'd go off-road on these, till it started doing this.
Oh.
Real slow. My next thought, because the wind's at my back going that direction, I'm thinking, oh, it's a helicopter. But I couldn't figure out, why would a helicopter at 9 o'clock at night behind some trees? Because I'm looking for logical explanations. Now, I'd already been a paranormal investigator, so I've seen UFOs, a number of them before that, afterwards, and before that. So the lights are so bright behind the trees, I'm doing this. And I got the camera in my hand, but I get out of the Jeep, and I start walking toward where it's coming. As it's coming toward me, I'm doing this, because I can't, the brighter than any landing lights I've ever seen in my life of any jet. And just for our audience's knowledge, I have 7 pictures of this thing, which I'll send to your show so you can show them later on.
Okay.
Unretouched pictures, okay, of this thing. As it's getting closer, my wife and kids are screaming in terror. And I apologize to them later on. But I'm a real curious kind of guy, and I'm a stupid guy when it comes to this, because I walked toward it. As it got closer to me, I walked 75 feet toward it. And the reason I know it, because I measured the distance the next day. Any good investigator does that. And I like to think that I am. Anyhow, not to pat myself on the back either. Anyhow, so as it got closer and closer and closer, my wife and kids are livid. They're screaming in terror, get back in the Jeep, get back in the Jeep. I wouldn't do it. So finally, it's almost overtopped me, and I'm feeling this heat, tremendous heat. All I can see is these 2 bright lights, and I'm doing this with a camera in my left hand. So finally, it was almost overtopped me at this point, and I raised my camera and I hit the flash. And when I did, the lights went out, and this orange hemispherical dish was overtopped me, but tilted down a little bit like this, maybe 15, 20 feet above me. I'm getting bathed in orange light. My wife said that it looked like waves and waves of orange heat coming down on me. Now, I was wearing a baseball cap, which is what I normally do. I just put this on to show you, but mostly I always wear a baseball cap pretty much, even that night. All I had on was a t-shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap because it was warm out, May 30th. Everywhere that was uncovered, I felt heat, but I was enthralled with this thing. So I started snapping pictures of this thing, 7 of them. Well, the object tilted down like this. At this point, it was maybe, the leading edge was maybe 10 to 12 feet above me. I saw 3 windows. Two windows were maybe 2 feet across, but they were not oblong, but sort of like, well, I guess oblong, but maybe like oblong, I guess. There was a big one in the middle, bigger, maybe 4 feet. In those windows, I saw, as God is my judge, 4 beings. 3 were the same size, the grays. 3. In the middle window, next to the other small one, was a tall one by a head lighter in color. All had those big black eyes. What do you think I did? I did this. And they did in unison, like this, with 4 long fingers, longer than mine. They weren't very big. The biggest one I would estimate maybe 5 foot. The other ones are about 3.5 to 4 feet. But at the same time, their landing gear was retracting back up into the craft like this on the edge. It wasn't like the trip, what you would think, like tripods. It wasn't like that. It was like you took 2 sets of fingers on a pie plate and went to the edges like this. Okay.
Right.
After the 6th shot, it lifted back up. Now, the whole time there was no sound whatsoever, nothing. It tilted back up, and in a blink of an eye, bam, it was 300 feet away over some trees. Now, the ridge is real windy. So I ran back to the Jeep to try to keep up with it. Now, I was going maybe 20 or 30 knots in the air, and it was jerking like this. And it was orange at this time. So when I got back in the Jeep, I'm going 60 miles an hour to keep up with this in a windy way, where it's going 20 or 30 knots in a straight line. So I came back down around this turn, and this thing zipped over some power lines and disappeared. So at this point, I'm feeling a lot of heat. My skin started peeling off. My hair started falling out on the sides where it was exposed. Anyhow, so I decided to take my wife down because they were terrified down at my brother's house. So we went down there, and you remember those big camcorders they used to have, those great big ones? Right. I got a handheld one that's about the size of my hand now, which is just as good. But this, my brother Ralph, he had this camcorder with 3 fully charged batteries. And I told him what happened. He said, well, let's go. So we got in he had a Chevy Silverado. We went back up and we didn't see one UFO. We saw 3.
Oh my
One,
gosh.
a triangle, one at the top, one on either side. Same type, hovering there. So he puts the motor's still running in his vehicle. We're at these crossroads, and he's 5 seconds of film, the battery dies. Brand new battery, fully charged. Puts another battery in, 3 seconds, it dies. We got 8 seconds of film. Puts a third battery in, the battery completely dies from the rip, and the lights go off on the vehicles. All 3 of them, the one goes to the top straight up, and the other 2 went right to left. Now, at this point, I'm feeling a lot of heat. He said, John, your skin's coming off. He said, we got to get you to the doctors. I said, well, okay, fine, because I wasn't feeling good. So he said, what are you going to tell the doctors when we get to the hospital? I says, if you tell them you fell asleep, you got zapped by a flying saucer, they're going to think you're nuts. Again, this is back in 1990. Things weren't quite as acceptable as today. I said, I'll tell them I fell asleep under ultraviolet lamp. So I go to the hospital. I wait. They take me to the emergency room. And the doctor says, what happened, Mr. Stasko? I says, I fell asleep under an ultraviolet lamp. He looks at me, cocks his head, and says, you're sticking with that story? They treated me for 3rd-degree burns. I ended up with cancer.
Wow.
I fought cancer for 8.5 years. It almost killed me. When I went to the Hillman Cancer Center here in Washington, PA, which is where I live, the doctor just so happens to be a UFO experiencer himself, a witness. He said you were exposed to some kind of ionizing radiation. I was on 6.5 years of chemo, and 8.5 years altogether, and I got a bunch of radiation that killed this cancer in me. Okay. It compromised my immune system badly. Okay. Anyhow, so let's get back. So the next day, I'm all wrapped up. I call my co-investigator. He's a nuclear engineer. So we go up at the area with radiation gear and a Geiger counter, and we went behind these trees to where the object was on the ground, and we found a circle on the ground. Now we're wearing rubber boots and the gear and badges, radiation badges. As we start walking in this circle, the needle goes all the way to the end, lethal, and our badges turned red, so we backed out. Now, after the radiation levels drop down, I have something called a soil compaction device. I can tell you by the depth of the imprint how heavy pretty much something is. The depth of the imprint indicated a weight of around 30 tons. 30 tons.
Wow.
Right. The circle itself, now listen to this. This is the strange thing. I want you to really think about this. I want our audience to think about this. The circle was exactly 50 feet in diameter. Why 50 feet? Now, why not 50 feet in an inch? Why not 56 feet? Why not 51 or 49? Exactly 50 feet in diameter. What's our numerical system based on? A foot. 12 inches make a foot. 5 times 12 is what? 60. Okay.
Yep.
10 times 5 is 50 feet. Anyhow, so I contacted the group that I was in. And I told my director at the time, and there was about 13 of us came down from the group, and we set up in the only outdoor type cemetery I've ever seen in my life. It's a church and cemetery combined. They have a bell tower outside. The church is a concrete pad with a concrete tabernacle, concrete seats, and old cemetery going back to the 1700s all around. Well, what we did wasn't quite kosher by setting up in there, but it was a good vantage point. So we set up our equipment there, and me and another woman named Evelyn, who was a reporter, we got in my Jeep with a walkie-talkie, and we decided to go along this ridge. This ridge is 4.5 miles long. So as we went down, we didn't see anything that way, but coming back, she spotted the same type of UFO hovering over a barn. So we're trying to radio ahead, and the radio wouldn't work. So we get back there and stuff, and this is where it gets really weird. Remember, we're in a cemetery. In the back of the cemetery is a grave that's an unmarked, it's an unhallowed ground. So one of the guys with us in the group, everybody in the group I belong to is professional in some regiment. Okay, everybody. Okay, there was no non-professionals. But he was a police officer. He's a big guy too. And he said, what's the story with this grave back here? Now, by this grave, the father had built of the son for the son. So he visited his son's grave. He made a seat out of a log weighed about 150 pounds with 2 logs that sat on. So I told him the story because I knew the story. The boy had hung himself. He was 16. And so he got buried. He was a suicide. So he got buried in the unhallowed part of the ground. So this officer should have never said this. Now we're filming all this, by the way. We get it on film. He said, I wonder if the kid's feet's touching the ground wherever he's at. Not a very nice thing to say, right?
Right.
The log lifted up, went about 10 feet and dropped at his feet. Got it on film.
Wow.
I was just up there the other day. I went up there, and the father had passed away since then, and the seat's gone and all that. But I was up there. I go up there. It's a very peaceful, beautiful place. I can send you a picture, in fact, of it. I've took other investigators up that way too from other groups.
Okay.
But anyhow, so my friend and I, my co-investigator and Devin and I decided we're going to go up there every weekend, and we're going to sit up there and we'll see if we see anything. So we're up there, to make a long story short, for probably hundreds of hours at this point, by this cemetery. Now, it's a good vantage point, as I said. Keep that in mind. So I don't like mustard. Why am I saying that? Well, Devin said to me, John, do you want a sandwich? I said, well, what do you got? What's on it? He says, bologna with mustard. I said, well, it was in a plastic bag. I said, well, set it on the dash. So I wasn't going to eat it. So we're there about 20 minutes. Now, this is a fresh sandwich. Keep this in mind now. I got a digital watch on, as does he. He says, John, look over there to the left. We look to the left and we see 3 orbs in these trees. That's the last thing we remember. We woke up about two hours later, totally disoriented. Didn't know what happened. Now, on the other side of the road from this cemetery were a line of trees, and behind that, a field. Okay, nowadays, they cut those trees down and they store big bales of hay there now. But back then, they didn't. So we were really disoriented. We didn't know what to do. So we went back to our meeting at this guy's house. That was our director. You know, I'm not going to mention his name because I feel some kind of way about the way he is. Anyhow, so I'm sitting next to Evelyn, and we're watching a documentary on scoop marks. She's sitting on my right, and I have my arm on the armrest of the chair, and she looks down. She says, John, you have an identical scoop mark like that, which is the same thing on the TV. I have 2 of them, one on my right ankle and one on my right wrist. The one on my right ankle I got when I was 5. The identical one I got on my right wrist was when I was 39. Same thing. So our directors decided to set up a hypnotic regression for me and for my friend Devin. I've never had a panic attack in my life. So the day I went up with my wife, and Devin was already there. And we weren't allowed to talk to each other for 2 weeks because we didn't want to cross-contaminate each other with what had maybe have happened to us. So I got a panic attack and I couldn't go. I drove back all the way back home. So they had to set it up again. So we set it up again. I go up, and this time I managed to go in. Now, Devin went in first. They probably took him 20 minutes to get him under, and he was under. He related to what he said happened to him. Then they took me in. Took almost an hour to get me under because I have a really, really strong will. What I told him under hypnosis, it was a lady that did it, scared him so bad. She said she'll never do this again. I'll get to what I told him. We videotaped this all, by the way. Okay. Under hypnosis, no ifs, ands, or buts. I was under. Anyhow, so they wanted to set, they reported back. Our director was there, in fact, by the way. So he wanted to go further with this, and he set it up with another hypnoregressionist, professional hypnoregressionist who was a Pittsburgh City police officer, had been doing it for 30 years, enhancing victims and witnesses' memories. So my first wife and I and my sister-in-law went up to his house in McMurray, PA, which is about 12 miles south of Pittsburgh. And they got me under. Took them an hour. They tested me, make sure that I was under. He did all these tests. And what I told him scared him. And my sister-in-law and my wife heard it, and that was videotaped too. And I have it on the old 8-track tape. I got to get it put on CD, or something like that. But it's on 8-track. So anyhow, so let me tell you about that. They were the Greys. Okay, I am an abductee. It's been happening to me since I was a young boy, a baby almost. Okay. Very hard for me to talk about even to this day. And I've talked to other people about in other groups and hundreds of people about this. I don't care if I'm believed or not. I really don't care. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm 72 years old, believe me or not. Call me a charlatan if you will, whatever. I have the tapes to prove it. Okay. I have the pictures to prove it. I have witnesses to prove it. Okay. What that I know is the truth is the truth.
Right.
The Greys are, I admire a guy named Whitley Strieber greatly for his experience with the Greys. He wrote the book Communion. Okay. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yep.
But he believes the Greys are here to enlighten us. They are not. They are liars. They have one agenda. Their agenda is to crossbreed humans, to make hybrid humans, and eventually using those hybrid humans to take in control of this world. Not by force, but from within. Okay? We're simply genetic material. That's all we are. That's it. That's their agenda. I also believe we have some hybrids living amongst us. Okay. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm talking over 56 years of research in these fields, talking to other abductees. Okay. Now I'll tell you something about the craft. The craft, the main craft, when I was told to look over by my friends to see those three other objects, they were behind us, behind those trees. I remember under regression, they'd come to the car. There were 5 of them. Devin's big guy. He's 6'6.5", 660 pounds. He makes me look like a twig. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", 220. At the time, I was about 230. Okay. They walked us to their craft. The craft was on the ground. Okay. They walked him in first. Now, when you walk into the craft, you don't walk into the main craft. You walk up a ramp, and there's like a wall that's curved. But you walk to the right and you go up around the top into the upper section. They took him in first. There were 3 of him leading. 1 was in front of him and 1 was on either side of him walking up the ramp. 1 was on either side of me. As I walked up the ramp, I had the presence of mind somehow, even under the whatever control I was under, to stop and put my hand on the side of the craft. And as I looked, managed to turn my head, I saw the craft. It felt warm to the touch, but it looked like layers of laminate. The sound of the ramp sounded like wood, but it wasn't wood. But it was strong, very strong. I remember them taking us up into this upper section. When we got there, everything kind of looked organic. Like there was a bench built into the wall, but it was one like built into the wall, like plastic, looked like plastic, but it wasn't plastic. There were 2 small seats and a screen and a table, like a raised table, maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall in the middle, underneath, okay, of the upper section. And there were 5 beings in there. They made my friend Devin sit on this bench and not move. And he couldn't move. They led me to this table, disrobed me completely, and told me everything would be fine. And I laid on the table willingly, and I looked up, and there was 3 around me, and the other 2 were in these small chairs. The chairs were so tiny, maybe a 4 or 5-year-old can sit on them, okay? Not a grown man. Certainly not no one my size or your size. As I laid there, I looked up, and there was like a round, like it looked like a round TV screen, but it was black. And then it lit up, and I could see the ground below me receding away from me.
Okay.
Like we were up in the air.
Right.
While they had me, they said they were saving my life. They said they did something to my blood. I have a very rare blood type, Rh negative. 3% of the people on the planet have it. Okay, I heal very, very, very quickly. Okay, I can get a cut and 5 minutes later, I'm healed. But anyhow, I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. But anyhow, that's another story. But they told me what their agenda was. Now, here's the thing. When you and I are sitting here talking, you're looking at me in a nonverbal way. We can see each other. You're very intent on what I'm saying, are you not?
Right.
Okay, you're focused on me. That's nonverbal communication, and I'm doing the same with you. These creatures, when they can read your mind when they're close enough to you to do this. So when they invade your mind, and that's the only thing I can say, that's how they communicate mainly with each other, but they can do it with humans as well. They can take and they open the door to your mind completely. So they know my fears, my hopes, everything. Okay. But by the same token, when they read your mind, they open the door a little bit to their mind. And what I saw looking back at me was not good. I saw human vivisection. You know what that
Oh,
is?
yeah.
Human vivisection. You're alive when they're taking you apart to study you. I saw
Right.
babies being taken. Okay. I saw human beings basically killed. Okay. We're nothing to these creatures. We're just simply genetic fodder. Just like you would take, you go outside to an ant colony. Are they evil? By the way, are these creatures evil? Are we evil when we experiment on chimpanzees? What do you say? What does your people say that are listening right now? Are we evil when we experiment on chimpanzees?
I would say yes, depending on what the motive is. I mean, if they're just doing it to kill people or kill animals, I mean, but you know, it depends on if we tend to let this happen if we think it's better for us, for humans, we kind of justify it.
Right. There you go. You just said it. You hit on it. When we experiment on chimpanzees, which are our closest living relative, we do so because they have not about 99% of the same DNA we do. We experiment on them for new drugs to see if it would help human beings and things of that nature. So are the doctors and scientists that do that evil? No, not technically, because they're not doing it to harm us. They're doing it to learn, to help us, to benefit us. The Greys do the same thing, okay? We're nothing more than, again, genetic fodder. They're experimenting on us for their own ends, okay? They don't care about us. I don't care what anybody says. They're not here to help us, okay? They have their own agenda. And just so you know, if an alien race were to want to take over the planet itself, they wouldn't have to come here like they did in the movie Independence Day. And I mean, for real, with guns and lasers blazing and all that stuff, they wouldn't do that. Look, they control anti-gravity. Therefore, they could take a couple of asteroids bigger than the ones that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, steer them into Earth's orbit, and let the asteroids do their dirty work, which will wipe out all humankind and clean the planet up of everything. But is that what they want to do? No. They want the world intact. And human beings are a means to an end. Okay? These creatures also are not, what I saw also is this. You know, we have ants and bees and wasps. They have queens, do they not? And they have workers, and they have drones. The Greys, the small Greys, are what I consider workers. They have an agenda. They do the work. The taller Greys, the lighter skin color ones, like I saw, I think they were I want to use the word doctors. They're not in charge of the mission per se. They're in charge of what's going to happen on the mission. The little Greys are the ones that actually pilot the ships. But there's something above those taller Greys, and there's something above them, and there's something above them. The next step up from the taller Greys are what I call the mantis. Okay? But there's something over them as well. There's something over them, and I couldn't see that. Now, what I also saw was this. I saw what I think was their home world. Their home world, from what I recall, and my friend corroborated all this stuff, same thing he said, was their home world circles a red giant star. Okay? Their daylight is like our twilight, so that's why their eyes are so big to gather more light. They also don't live on the surface. They live underground. Their planet's almost a desert type environment. They have something which kind of resembles a tree, but it's not a plant tree. It's more like I don't want to say crystalline or rock, but it's something different. It's like a black, I don't know how to describe it. And but it's a red sun, and so their twilight's like a reddish color. And it's always like that all day. But they travel, and they're in a system. And the only thing I can figure out, it's the Zeta Reticuli system. Okay. And there's several worlds in there, and there's several other stars there too, but their main star is a red giant. But anyhow, while I was there on this ship with Devin, they told me they were angry at me. And I said, why? You should not have brought anybody. We told you not to bring anybody.
Oh,
So that tells me that happened to me before. This is all on tape, under regression, hypnotic regression. Okay. And then some people say, oh, that's bullshit. It's all magic and smoke and mirrors. No, it's not. It really does work. Okay. I've been under it twice. Might go under it again. Anyhow, so they said to me, they asked me, and at the time my wife was pregnant with our third child. Keep that in mind. So they said to me, would you like to go with us now? And then they went on to say, mind to mind, if you go with us, you can't come back.
oh,
I said, no, I have a child going to be born. And they didn't argue, but they were upset with me that I brought Devin. That's the only word. I'm not angry, but upset. I shouldn't have brought anybody. I was supposed to come alone. They said, the next time we come, you're not going to have a choice. You'll have to go with us. Now, that's all on tape. So, people want to ask me questions, fine. But I can tell you this. These aliens they've been here. Like, I admire Carl Sagan and I admire Neil deGrasse Tyson. And they always talk about the vast interstellar distances between galaxies and between interplanetary systems and such, and how it would take millions of years to come here at the speed of light. They've already made the trip. How they've made it, maybe they have faster than light travel, or maybe they use wormholes. Maybe they can fold time and space and travel. I'll give you an instance about that. Okay, imagine this calendar being space. And
right.
you're here on this corner. This is Earth in our solar system. And they live way over here. That's a straight line. Shortest distance in geometry is a straight line, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. What if they could bend space? And then bend it again. So almost no travel time between the worlds, between the different interstellar systems. So they made the trip somehow.
Right.
Okay. They're already here. They're not the only race that's here. You have the reptilians here and the Nordiques, and maybe one other race. I also remember under regression that I was introduced one time. I was taken and I was put in a room. It was like a dome room, but it was solid. It was made out of, looked like almost like concrete. And there was these little tiny stocky blue beings wearing like a robe of some kind. And there's a bunch of little children in the room. And they sounded like children, but you looked at them, they looked a little bit like children, except they had large eyes. And they took me over, these two grays that were within this room, took me over to this one child, and they showed me this child, and this child looked up at me and held my hands, and I felt a connection with this child.
Oh.
So I don't know I can only surmise what that meant. Maybe it's my child. Maybe it's a hybrid child that I fathered somehow with an alien female, or my DNA material was taken, my semen was taken and implanted in some way. But I felt a connection. I've had other instances of missing time too all my life. There might be some people out there that have missing time, not even realizing. You might think a 15-minute trip is like, it took a half hour. Wow, that must have been a lot of traffic. You really don't think about it. It only takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Right.
I'll tell you another thing. This area I'm about to tell you about, it's got a lot of history, a lot of paranormal history and bad history. I got a call from our director again for a woman who was claimed to be an abductee. It was about 5 miles away from this area. I'd never met this woman in my life. So my friend and I, Devin, would decide to go out there. It was summertime. We go out to meet this woman. He gets out first to meet her. She's probably in her late 40s, 45, 48. He's talking to her. She's laughing, joking with him and stuff. And I'm in the car getting my briefcase out, because in my briefcase, I have forms to fill out for when I talk to people, things like that, date, time, et cetera, all that. So everything was fine with her and Devin. I get out and she took one look at me and her face turned white and she blanched and she didn't want to say anything more. Finally, Devin talked her into talking to me and she says, I know you. I went, did you see me in a store or someplace or what? She goes, no, you were with them. I went, what? What do you mean I was with who? You were with them. And she went on to tell me that she was taken, and I was with these grays supposedly helping to calm her.
Oh.
The grays also told me under hypnotic regression that I was one of the chosen, not the chosen, not like one of the chosen, one of the what they call the good army, whatever that means. I have no idea what that means either. Okay. Again, I don't expect our viewers to, you can believe me or not. I really don't care. I didn't come on this podcast to be believed one way or the other. It's your decision to believe what I'm about to tell you. But I'll say this. I've talked to other abductees, and the reason I know that these other abductees that I have talked to are telling the truth is because what they described on the inside of the craft, I remembered. I'll tell you something. What I really noticed about being inside the craft, the smell. The number one of the 5 senses we have is the sense of smell. When you were a kid and your mom was baking bread, you remember that, don't you?
Yep.
If somebody else bakes bread, you're going to remember that smell. I remember the smell of that craft smelled like wet cardboard. I remember the light in the craft was like a pinkish purple, which illuminated the inside of the craft itself. It was pinkish purple. So those things I remember. The wife just came into the room.
All right.
So anyhow, but she turned the light on for me so you could get a good look at all your viewers can get a good look at me. I am quite the looker, but anyhow, but I remember these things, and when they tell me these same exact things, I know they're telling me the truth because based on my experience, it happened to me. Again, there are going to be people who are doubtful. That's fine, okay. But I've seen UFOs 10 times in my life. Every time I've seen them, I've been with a witness or witnesses. Now, let me move ahead. Let me switch over a little bit.
All right. When do you want to answer questions? We have like 6 or 7 questions that might be pertinent to what you've already said.
Shoot them at me. I'm ready.
All right. So Polly wanted to know if you think you have any implants.
Yes. Yes, that's a friend of mine, Polly Roderman from Israel. How you doing, Polly? I miss you. Okay.
Yeah, she's a good friend of ours too. We love Polly.
She's one of my administrators. She's one of my administrators in Bob Lazar and beyond. Great person. Yep. Love her to death. Anyhow, yes, I have an implant right here in my abdomen. Yes.
And then she also asked, do you know if your parents were related to ET phenomenon or other members of your family? Or has it just been you?
My father. My father. Yes. He's had experiences himself. He passed away at 73 years of age. I'm 72. So hopefully I'll outlive my father, but we'll see. But
were they similar incidents or stories or is it generational, do you think?
Yeah, it is. And UFO abductees they do follow families. Yes, they do. Okay. And it depends on your genome, I guess your DNA genome. Okay. I am way different than my brothers and sisters. All my brothers and sisters are blonde hair, blue and green eyed, and shorter, much shorter than me. My tallest brother next to me is like 5'10". I'm 6'4". I'm the biggest of them. I don't look anything like my brothers and sister, and definitely wasn't the milkman that came to the house, by the way. So, yeah, I'm different. But my dad was different than his brothers and sister too. Okay. So, but my dad got interested in the things he got interested because he saw things as a young man as well. So things happen to follow families. And yes, I believe that. I have 2 sons and I have some daughters as well. Okay. I don't know if my sons, they live in Kentucky right now, 2 of them. And I don't know about my daughter either. I don't know if they're having experiences or not because I haven't talked to them about this yet. But my one daughter and my one son did see the UFO that hovered over top of me, by the way, along with my wife. And they recall that vividly. So yeah, it does follow family. Now, just so you know, I think the human genome in some cases being manipulated to advance us in a way that would benefit the grays. So when they do interbreed and they make hybrids, the hybrids are stronger than a normal human and mentally and otherwise. Okay. So I think they're manipulating our DNA to do that. That's their breeding agenda. I think it's a breeding agenda.
Right.
But yes, we follow families. Yes.
Yeah, they say now that there is a section in our DNA that is, they call it the junk file, but inside that there is ET DNA or extraterrestrial DNA, if you want to call it that, that they
Well,
can't figure out what it is.
they don't know if it's ET DNA. They know we have a lot of junk DNA. Okay, they don't know what it is. But let me tell you something that you don't know. We evolved within a 13,000 year period from Homo to Homo sapiens, from Cro-Magnon. Our brains grew so fast, evolutionarily, it would take us 1 billion years to get to where we are. But we did it in about 13,000 years. How? Evolution doesn't account for that, a rapid expansion of our brain or our abilities. As we've evolved as human beings, we've gotten weaker skeletally, but our brains have gotten larger. Okay? We're not as strong, say, for instance, as Neanderthal man was. We're not as robust as Neanderthal man was, or Homo forensis. Okay? But our brains have gotten larger. And we've relied more ever since man first picked up the first stone axe. It was a rock. And we learned to defend ourselves. We rely on technology to defend us. We're the dominant life form on the planet. But imagine if we didn't know what technology was. Where would we be on the food chain? At the very bottom.
Right.
Okay. But we've learned through evolution. But our brains have developed so fast that evolution itself does not account for it. Okay. That's the strange part. So yes, the junk DNA could be ET DNA. Maybe it needs a signal to be turned on.
Right.
Some type of signal to be turned on. Hope I answered your question, Paul.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
Now, my question is about your family. Does anybody else have RH negative, or are you the only one? Did your dad or your children have it?
Nope, my dad doesn't. I'm the only one that has it.
Okay.
Only one. Now, that's another thing. I mean, that's strange as it is. I mean, when I went to get my hip and knee replaced, they were kind of taken aback by that because it's hard to find donors for that. But they were all kind of taken aback by that.
And then Polly, another question from Polly. Other than hybridization, what is the goal with you, or do you stay with special senses, telepathy, telekinesis, etc.? Like, do you have contact with them, or?
I think I do through dreams, because my wife has told me that I talk in my sleep, and I speak in a different language at times, and she doesn't understand it, and I don't know what I'm saying. Also, the fact is that I have, I know it's going to sound a little weird too, but look at the show I'm on here. We're talking about paranormal stuff.
Right.
I have precognition, but I don't have, like, there's not a specific time things happen to me but some people call it deja vu. It's not deja vu. It's more than that with me. Okay. I was, for instance, I saw a cemetery in one of my dreams that I had never been to before. It was exactly the same cemetery when I saw it. I've seen other places that I've never been before in my dreams, but I see it in real life, and it's exactly the same in my dreams. Things have happened to me that I've only dreamt about, but it comes to pass for me. But there's no specific time frame. Like, it wouldn't happen, say, today or 6 months or maybe a year from now, but it does happen. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but it does happen. So yes, I think I have some special senses. And it's funny you should say that. In the groups I belong to, they say that it seems no matter where I go, more often than not, things happen. Why is that? Well, I don't know. People ask me all the time, why have you seen so many UFOs? Why have you seen Bigfoot? Why have you seen ghosts? I don't know. Maybe there's something about me that's attractive, or maybe I'm just more open to it. But I'm more receptive to like an alien interaction. I'm more receptive to seeing Bigfoot. I don't bear any harm.
Right.
I'm not afraid of ghosts. There's 4 ghosts that live in this house. 4. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. I've seen them. Okay. I've been to haunted houses. I've cleaned houses. I've cleared houses of ghosts. I know how to do that. So there's something, I don't know. everybody asks me, why did the things happen to you that happened? I don't know. That's unknown, but things do happen.
Right. Because it's weird because I've made this statement before, and I know my wife has too when she's on the show with us or we're just talking. Why do people that go out hunting ghosts, like say in a group, one or two people might have the sensation, might have the touch, the feel, the hair standing up, but the person next to them doesn't feel or hear a thing?
I'll tell you why. Okay, it's the same reason why little children have more ghostly experiences than adults, because they're more open-minded. Their minds are not cluttered by the day-to-day routine of living as adults. They're more prone to magic than we are. They'll believe in magic. Okay, their minds are so open. Okay, so yeah, they're more open. Some people are more sensitive in that way. Everybody has extrasensory perception. Everybody.
Right.
But it's when they're developed. Okay, we all have it to some degree. Some don't even know they realize they have it. But women, for instance, have great intuition generally. Why?
Right.
Why? Think about it. Not because there's necessarily. I mean, there's some pretty smart women. I know a lot of smart women. Okay, but because their minds are more open, they're more
Right.
receptive. Men are more like, okay. When I worked as a paralegal, my mind was focused on legal stuff all the time. Okay, I had to. I wasn't focused on anything else but what I was doing. So my mind wasn't that open at that point. When I got away and I retired from all that, guess what? Now my mind's much more open and more receptive to things. I go out and I look, and I'm more open to something happening. Okay, not necessarily saying that's going to make something happen, but it makes me more of an opportunist that something may happen. So yes, I think that every human being on the planet has that ability. And some people, as you said, when they go to these ghostly things, ghost hunts and stuff, something might happen. This one doesn't feel anything. But I got to tell you something about that too. I watch these shows on TV where they have these so-called paranormal investigators, and they go into a haunted house, okay? And then the ghost pops up, and they run out there screaming like little girls. Isn't that the point, or why you're there, to see that?
Right.
If you're that scared, why are you running?
Yeah. Weren't you expecting to see something or hoping to see something?
Right. So if you're that afraid, listen, stay home and let somebody else do the dirty work. Okay. Paranormal investigators, you don't have to be completely fearless, but you have to be more receptive, and you have to put things in proper perspective. If you're going to do the job, you know what you're going to expect. Okay. If you're going into a haunted house, expect to, and you heard it's pretty haunted, expect to see something. And don't run like a little girl. I walked through a ghost in this house. I think it was a ghost. I don't know what it was. There's one black entity in this house. I walked to the top of the steps, and I walked right through it. And what did I do? I laughed. I walked right through it. It was cold as hell. I walked right through it at the top of steps.
Huh.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not afraid of that kind of stuff. You know what you got to, people ask me, what's the most dangerous creature on the planet? And I say to them, do you have a mirror? And they go, what? I said, look in the mirror. Human beings are the most dangerous creatures on the planet.
Absolutely.
Ghost, listen, I'm going to tell you about ghosts. So we're going to get off the subject a little bit, but ghost. Most ghosts, I met Hans Holzer many years ago. I don't know if you know who that is. Hans Holzer used to be the world's #1 parapsychologist. I met him at California State College back in the day when he came up to give a lecture. Okay. He told me in his experience, he dealt primarily with ghosts and hauntings, that ghostly hauntings last about 400 years. And then that ghost will move on. I call it transitioning to a new frequency. Okay. Now, there's also ghosts that are genuine ghosts that maybe stuck around. They had a violent death and they stick around for a while. And, they had something left unfinished, or they had a violent death. They don't even know they're dead for a while. Okay.
Right.
But they're all, and then sometimes you have, like, if you have a loved one that passes away, there's also evil entities. Okay. Evil entities. These evil entities, they're some people call them demons. You call it whatever you want. I call them evil entities. They feed off of negative emotion. So, for instance, say you lose a child to some
Right.
disease, cancer, whatever. You're grieving over that. All of a sudden, this thing pops up, looks like your kid.
Ah, right.
So in one moment, you're feeling good about seeing it, but you're feeling more grief. You're feeding this evil entity, this negative energy.
Yep.
Demons do that. And if you believe in angels, and I do, because I had an instance, I got to tell you, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But if you believe in angels, then you have to believe in the opposite side, the devils, because that's all they are, fallen angels. Okay?
Right.
So I saw a demon once in my life, and I did get afraid of that one time. Okay? So yeah, the paranormal world, as I said earlier, is a wide open world. The reality of what you think you know isn't what really is. All around us, we have things going on. I had a friend that was a Baptist minister, and he was a good guy, and I miss him dearly. His name was Reverend Ray Beach. He told me, Johnny, he says, you have a spiritual battle going around you at all times. The good and the evil are fighting for your soul. I believe that.
Right.
I believe it.
Absolutely.
I also, and I know my Catholic friends out there may not like what I'm about to say. And my dad was Catholic, my mom was Protestant. I went to both churches to satisfy when I was a kid. But I'm going to tell you what, Catholics believe in purgatory. I don't. I believe there's a heaven and a hell. And I believe we live here on earth. This is hell. And I'll tell you why I believe that. What's hell to you? Is hell the lack of certain foods? Is hell the lack of, I hate to say that, sex? Okay. Hell to you doesn't, not necessarily the same thing, means the same thing to me.
Right.
Heaven to me doesn't mean the same thing as heaven to you. So we all suffer in our own ways here through different illnesses, don't we? And losses. Okay. I think when we die, we transition to another frequency. We move on. Some people move on faster than others. Some people stick around for a while and they haunt. Ghosts, I know for a fact, aren't to be feared. They're not to be feared. Like this house, I said, we have 4 ghosts here. They have every right to be here more than I do because they were here before I was. I don't try to drive them out. I could. I know how to do it, but I won't. Okay? Because they have a right to exist. And when they decide to move on, they'll move on. And when I die, if I'm in this house, guess what? I might be here for a while too, haunting everybody. We'll see. I'm gonna haunt all those bad paranormal investigators. That's for sure. I'll tell you that.
Oh,
I mean, I met some good people in this genre. Okay, over the years. Paulie's one of them. She's a good friend of mine. I mean, just love her to death. She's a really great person, and others too. Bill Rigby, and Dan Benoit. Julie McQuaid, and people like that, and Dan Hageman, and others like that. Linda Sigmund. These are all really good people. Mike Hartman from Ohio. I mean, these are really good people. Dr. Meldrum, good, really great person. Ken Gerhardt. These are friends of mine. Okay. So, and I respect them immensely. And they're serious about what they do. And I don't want other groups and other people who take advantage of this to make money off the genre. I don't care if you want to write a book, but don't let that be your primary goal in exploring the paranormal. Okay.
right.
Make that your secondary goal. Try to gather information so you can pass it on to people. That's what's important. Okay. That's how we learn and grow. Okay. This group here, I'm talking to your group tonight. Okay. And people on your podcast. And I want you all to know, like I said, this world is much more than you think you know. Okay. But you have to be more open-minded to it. I also want to give a warning out. I won't do it. There's 2 things you shouldn't do. On your cell phones, they have something called spirit boxes. Don't use them. And I'll tell you why. When a spirit or entity knows you can communicate with that, now they know that you can communicate with them. They're going to bug you now. They're going to follow you now. Stay away from the spirit boxes. Okay. The other thing, and this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyhow. Ouija boards, leave them alone.
Right.
Leave them alone. If you got one, tear it to pieces, go out in the yard, dig a hole, sprinkle holy water on it till it's wet. Then when it dries, burn it and cover it up and forget about it. Leave it alone. Don't mess with them. That's a gateway. It's a gateway tool. Okay. Seances. Even in the Bible, it says you should not listen to seers and soothsayers. Okay. I know people to do that. Okay. However, I would stay away from getting involved in that kind of stuff, seriously, because when you're opening yourself up to another entity, you don't know if it's a good entity or a bad entity. Okay. I've been on cases where people were possessed. They open themselves up to this stuff, and now they're with you. They follow you everywhere. They torment you. That's their goal. Anyhow, I got way off the subject here talking about ghosts and stuff. But let me talk about the Bigfoot stuff. So I hadn't been on a Bigfoot case until 91. I got a call from our director again, and there was a case in this family. I'll tell it. I can say the name because he's a good friend of mine. Jeremiah Horseman's family, McMurray Road in Pennsylvania, and McMurray, PA. They had supposedly Bigfoot on their property. Now it's all got condos and stuff where these fields used to be. So my friend and I, Devin, we went down there. We were on that case about a year. I sent Devin down. I climbed a tree. It was like 25 feet up in the broad daylight, and I had a camera up there with me, and I had FM headsets on, so I can talk real quietly through here.
Right.
And Devin, I came down along these tracks, which are down by this creek and these woods. And he talked to me, he said, John, something's throwing boulder-sized rocks at me. He's a big guy. He was afraid. And he said, it's coming your way. So I'm looking for this thing. And I look down, and I'm like 25 feet up, about approximately 25, 26 feet. I looked down and heard a rustling. I looked up and I saw two sets of green eyes looking up at me. So what do you think I did? I shimmied down the tree as fast as I could to see what it was, and they were gone. Let's move ahead. Nothing after that. We did stakeouts and everything there, okay? The family and Devin and I. One night I'm walking out of the woods. Everybody else that was there saw two juvenile Bigfoot follow me out of the woods. Between 5 and 6 feet tall, between 150 and 180 pounds. They were juveniles. That case was published in Fate magazine, February 1994. I have it on my phone. I can send that to you as well. That was my first instance of that. So moving ahead about a week or so, November. I go home. It's almost midnight. I'm tired. Now I have a Jeep CJ and had a winch on the front. I used to pull people out in the wintertime. These kids would get stuck and they'd call me and I'd come and get them and stuff.
Right.
So I get home and my first wife, who passed away, said, John, the chief of police in California, PA, wants you to come up to High School Hill. I said, what's going on? She goes, well, he doesn't want to talk about it on the phone. I said, well, there's no cell phones back in those days. So I said, well, okay, I'll go up. So the only thing I had on me was a spotlight called a Q-beam with a portable power pack, my 1,000,000-volt stun gun, which I always carried because I always carried a lot of money for the company. I was a site supervisor for an environmental company at the time. So I go up, and it's nighttime, so about midnight now. It had snowed earlier that day, but it was just a dusting on the grass. So I get up there, and on the right side of the road going up this hill were 12 police officers and 30 civilians standing on the right side of the road. And I said, so I pulled up. I'm figuring somebody's stuck or they need pulled out. That's why they called me. So I said, Charlie, what's going on? He goes, look up there. And about 300 feet away, it was a high tension tower. It was overcast. I mean, you really couldn't see anything, couldn't see the sky or anything. So I says, I could see something leaning against this high tension tower. I went, okay, let's go. So I start walking up over the hill and I look behind me and the police officers aren't coming. I said, you guys coming or what? And they go, no, look at the size of the effing thing. I said, you guys got guns. He said, we're not going. I said, well, I'm going because I'm crazy and I'm fearless like that. You know, it's going to be the death of me. So I start walking up over the hillside. And as I got up there, as I got closer, I could smell it before I could see it really good. It smelled like death, like dead animals, rotten carcasses and dirt and everything. So I'm getting closer and closer. And I got this Q beam, which is 500,000 candle power. It's pretty bright. I can light up a hill a mile away.
Really I used to have a Q beam.
You know what I'm talking about, how powerful they are. Right? So I'm walking up here, and as I get closer, I got it with about 30, 40 feet away, and I realize what I'm looking at now. This thing, listen, I'm 6'4". I can reach 8 foot, flat-footed. This thing was 10 feet tall. Now, how do I know it was 10 feet tall? Because after it left, I measured the height of where the tower leaned against it. It was standing there with its arms partially crossed like this. Now, on your podcast, when you open up, you show a picture of what you call Bigfoot that looks
Right.
like the Incredible Hulk. They do not look like that. It looks like a gorilla.
Yep.
They are covered with hair except for their face right here, down to here, and there's hair here to here. There's no sagittal crest like a gorilla. Its head's bigger, but it's no sagittal crest. The ears are completely covered. I couldn't see its ears or its neck. It had almost no neck. Shoulders wider than my SUV. Okay. Arms like tree trunks, covered with dark brown hair or fur with reddish tinges in it. Now, I couldn't see its genitalia, so I couldn't tell you if it was a male or female. I did see its mouth. It had its mouth partially open. I saw 2 canines, big canines like this, and molars. They were stained. Okay. So it's obviously an omnivore. It eats meat and vegetable matter. Okay. Because it's got canines.
Right.
Okay. Now, no genitalia that I could see. Its fingernails were dark gray. The face was dark gray. Now, listen to this. And I said this to you before the show started. No primate on this planet has eye shine. None. No gorillas, no chimpanzees, no bonobos, no monkeys, no humans. This thing had green eye shine. I shined that light right in its eyes, and it was green. I also shined the light on its fur or hair. And the strange point is, you know how powerful that Q beam is. It should have reflected something back, should it have not?
Right.
Some type of reflection back. It did not. It seemed like the light was absorbed into it. I stood there in awe. I got within 15 feet of this thing, more like 12 to 13 feet. Listen, I'm a big guy, and I was even bigger back then. This thing could have ripped my arms and legs off and flossed its teeth with my legs and arms. That's how big this thing was, massive. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's something called infrasound. What I noticed from it, I was feeling waves of sound hitting me subsonically. But it was like a palpable hit. But it felt like it was, the only thing I could describe it as is I felt waves of sadness coming from this creature. I don't know how to explain it, but like it was sad. It tilted its head like this and looked at me and like this and then like this. And it looked down at me, and I didn't feel any animosity from it. I didn't feel any fear of it. 15 to 20 seconds. I didn't have a damn camera on me because I didn't know what I was coming up there for. But I had 42 witnesses that were on site before I even got there, including 12 police officers. In 3 steps, this thing moved faster than my eye could almost see, a blur. 30 feet and 3 steps. That's the 10-foot stride. I mean, it was actually more like a jump, but it was 30 feet in 3 steps and ran into the woods. I tried to follow back, then I couldn't do it. I did get hair samples, 2 hair samples. I sent them to a local university, and back then in the 1991, 92, they didn't have the DNA technology that evolved to what it is today.
Right.
It came back in 2 weeks, unknown hominid. Now, the strange thing about the hair samples were they were transparent with a tinge of color around the edges, unlike human hair at all or like any primate hair I've ever seen. I measured the footprints, and I had a soil compaction device in the back of the vehicle, by the way. The footprints for this thing was 22 inches. I'd have to say more because it was melted out a little bit. There was some snow there, but it was mostly dirt because there's just a dusting of snow. I'd have to say more reasonable be 20 inches. That's big. The width of the foot was almost 11 inches. So a wide foot, but real long. And they traveled in a straight line. If you know anything about Bigfoot, they don't walk like we do side to side. They walk in a straight line like this. The depth of the imprint indicated a weight of around 1,200 pounds. Oh. That's massive. That's bigger than a grizzly bear. Grizzly bear is an 800-pound grizzly is a big grizzly. And an 8-foot tall grizzly, maybe 9 foot is a big grizzly. This thing was bigger than both. Now, I go back, got plaster cast of it. The next day, I couldn't do it that night. Too late. I had to come back. That was written up by a police report, okay, in a police report. The next day, it snowed again, and it went down to 20 below zero with the wind chill. I'm at home in front of my house. My first wife, like I said, who passed away. I'm shoveling snow. I'm wearing a black snowmobile suit. And remember those old moon boots?
Yes.
Warm. I like them.
Yep.
I'm out there. So my wife comes out and says, John, she says, KDK News in Pittsburgh, which is the oldest radio and TV station in the country, they called, they want to talk to you. I says, what about? And he says, and she wouldn't talk about it over the phone. So I went in the house. And it was Mary Rob Jackson from Channel 2 News. She's a reporter. And she's also was a friend of mine. And she says, they've had a sighting of Bigfoot up in Crescent Heights, PA. Now, Crescent Heights is a town that's mostly got a lot of black people, or some white people there too, but mostly black people live there. Nice people and stuff. A lot of them I went to school with. It's maybe 6 miles away, if that, maybe 5 miles away from where the UFO was and the Bigfoot was. Keep that in mind. So we go up there, and they had a church up above the town. It was a Baptist church on a Red Dog Road, and no houses were up there at the time. Now there's houses been built up around that church. But anyhow, so we go up there. There's other people up there, and there's 2 sets of tracks. Mary Robb, who's only 5 foot tall, tried to jump between the tracks and couldn't do it. I couldn't jump between the tracks. That's how far apart they were, the stride. A normal man, a 6 foot man, has a 24-inch stride, heel to toe. I have a 26-inch stride because of my height. This thing had a stride at least 6 to 8 feet, the big ones, and the other one is about 7 feet. Now, I measured the depth of the imprint again, and it was about the same depth as the one up by the high school, below the high school I just told you about. It's about the same weight. On the other foot, the other smaller set was about almost 18 inches, 17 inches point something. On one leg, it indicated a weight of 800 pounds. But the other leg of the smaller one indicated a weight of 1,000 pounds. Why is that?
Was it carrying something?
Bingo. What's it carrying that weighs almost 200 pounds?
It's baby?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe a deer. Maybe a deer killed.
Oh, maybe a deer carcass. Yeah.
So anyhow, so I followed the tracks to the edge of the hill. I didn't find any more tracks and went over any further. I mean, what the heck? So we're looking, me and her are looking. We have a camera guy there too, and he's filming all this. And we're looking. We can't figure out where the tracks are. We're looking. We don't see any further tracks. I'm like, what the heck? They don't have wings, because they overlooked the town. They were looking down over into the small town. It's maybe 150, 200 people live there at the most. So I took another look at the tracks, and I'm like, wait a minute. You know what Native Americans used to do? They used to step back into their tracks, into the thick brush where the tracks would disappear. You couldn't follow them. Found 2 hair samples there too. Took them to the university, and they checked it out. Same result, unknown hominid. This is all within 5 or 6 miles of the same area. Let me go further. Route 43, which is a primary route between Fredericktown, Brownsville, and Route 70, which is a major thoroughfare, is patrolled by California police officers. The chief of police told me he was on broad daylight routine patrol, and he saw one squatted down on the side of the road watching traffic going by. This is 200 yards away from where I saw the 10-foot one. They're using these power lines as right-of-ways to travel. Okay? Because no human being could keep up with them. I can tell you that. None. And I can see why a lot of photographs of these creatures are blurry, because they can move so damn fast. So yeah, it's my great-granddaughter just stopped in the room here. Anyhow, so that's that. Then I also interviewed a bunch of people up in Crescent Heights, and they were scared to death. And one of the ladies was a old black lady. She lived in a trailer, and there's a valley between Crescent Heights and the California Ridge Road where I saw the UFO on the ground that hovered over me. Keep this in mind. This is how close it was. A couple hundred yards, maybe. This black lady lived in a trailer on the hillside. So her window faced down the hill. So she heard a noise outside one night. She looked out her window. Her window's 9 feet off the ground. She looked, and this thing was looking right back at her. That'd have been 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
Scared the hell out of her. I talked to other people out there who were so terrified they wouldn't even go out of their houses at night. Okay. We had a rash of over 500 Bigfoot case sightings, allegedly, in a 2.5-week period. I had a priest I interviewed. Listen to this. This is all during this real cold spell we had. He said he had taken out some old pizza that he had the night before. He threw the rest of it out, put it in his trash. He heard a rustling when he got up the next morning, looked out the window, he saw a family of Bigfoot rooting through his trash and taking the pizza.
Oh,
I guess they like pizza. I don't know, pepperoni. I don't know.
wow.
Anyhow, then there's a park. There's a place called Patsy Hillman Park, which used to be the old Luzerne Park. I investigated sightings up there as well, which is only right down the road, maybe a half a mile from there. Okay. So then Devin and I went up to Connellsville, and we talked to police officers up there, and they said they had sightings up in an old stone quarry, which we went up, and it's way up on like a mountain almost. And we followed tracks inside this giant cave there. It was a stone quarry, actually. You could have driven a 747. That's how big it was. So there was a lot of sightings at that time going on, okay, by a lot of reputable people. So again, what's the connection between the ridge, the UFOs, and the Bigfoot, all within that area? It's within a 5-mile area. Hauntings as well. We had one case up there years ago where there was a 15 or 16-year-old boy was taken, abducted, raped, put in a burn barrel, and burned alive.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I was just up on that ridge last night by myself. My wife stayed at home, and I went to visit my brothers and down that way. And I started coming back about 8:30 last night. I got up there, and I'm driving along this ridge, perfectly content, just riding along. I do it every chance I get, okay? And we just bought another vehicle, by the way. But anyhow, so there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, let me tell you something else. Devin and I got a call from the Uniontown Police. And above Uniontown, there's a mountain called Summit Mountain, the second tallest mountain in the state. It's about 2,500 feet tall. Down below that mountain is Uniontown itself. And there's a place called National Cryogenics. They make cryogenic stuff, I guess. And one of the people that worked there said they saw a green and white UFO hovering over the place. So they reported to the police, and the police called us. And so Devin and I, this is wintertime. So we decided we're going to get this brainchild. We're going to go up on the mountain at night, around midnight, and sit up there and look down overlook Uniontown, where National Cryogenics is at. So we took telescopes up there, and we took other equipment, cameras and stuff. Now, it snowed up on a mountain for sure. Now, there's a church camp up there called Jamonville Church Camp. It was abandoned at this time of year because that's where kids go up there for summer and they hang out. It's a really nice place. It's got a cross up here on top of the mountain. It's 60 feet tall. You can see it for 20 miles away at least. Anyhow, so we pull up that way, and we want to get a good vantage point. So we pull into that area, and we're going down this side road, and there's this pickup truck sitting there. It's painted in camo colors. Now I'm driving my Jeep. And I said to Devin, I says, man, I got an eerie feeling about it. So we drive by, and there's two guys in military camo sitting in the truck. So I'm like, I got a bad feeling about this. So I said, we drove down the road. We were on a turn. I said, I'm going to pull off into the woods. So I pulled off in the woods. Not a minute later, here comes this truck with its lights off coming down the road past us. Well, that kind of spooked us, but we were determined to do what we were going to do. So we go up. And after the truck passed, we about 10 minutes, and we went up. We went by these microwave towers, but not right next to them because we don't want to get microwave radiation. And we're sitting down there, and we've got everything set up. About a half hour later, I hear a helicopter. I don't see it. Now, this is the Chestnut Ridge area. Chestnut Ridge has been called Pennsylvania's Twilight Zone. Bigfoot sightings, UFOs, cryptids, all types going on, everything going on up there. So we go up there, and we're set up, and I hear this helicopter. I don't see it. I'm taking a Q beam now. I'm looking around like this into the sky. I caught it in my Q beam, running with no lights on, no running lights at all. On the ground below it was a Lincoln Continental, blue, dark blue. I think it was dark blue or black. I'm not sure. Followed by two Humvees and two military troop carrying trucks, all running with their lights off. This is midnight. 12:30, 1 o'clock, I guess, by that point. Now, we're really spooked now. Now, there was snow on the road further down. So Devin and I decided we're not going to go back the same way they just went. So we packed up our stuff, and we got out, and we loaded up, and we went down the other way. Now, military says there's no bases up on that mountain. I beg to differ.
Yeah, I think so.
Let me tell you something. The reason I know there's something up there is because we followed the tracks of those vehicles just came, and we went down, and there was a fence on the left-hand side of the road about 2 miles down, and it was like a bunker there. And there's a fence there. It was shut, but we seen tracks coming up from the bunker. They came up from underground, from under the ground.
Oh,
Now we're really spooked. So what was really strange after that was for the next couple of weeks, our phones, remember the old party lines they used to have on phones?
yep. We had one as a kid.
Right. Well, you could hear people on the phone and stuff. So I used to call Devin every day. We talked. He lived in West Mifflin. I lived in California, PA. And our phone sounded like somebody was listening in. So we got a little spooked. So we tried to write each other. Our mail was being lost. So we started doing codes. We made up a code. Okay. Anyhow, after that, we go back up the ridge, man, and Devin were up there getting on our stakeout as usual. So my wife tells me at the time, she's the one that passed away, she says, John, a black helicopter was over top the house. The mayor of the town saw it too. A black helicopter.
Wow.
Now, so we decided we're going to go up to they have a military base, a reserve base up there. We went up there and we wanted to talk to the person in charge up there at the time. So we actually got entrance to that facility, and we wanted to talk to the man in charge. So we go in and we told him we're paranormal investigators. We represent this group and stuff, and everything was fine. He was laughing and joking with us like we're a joke because we're paranormal investigators, not knowing that we're very highly trained in the areas we're trained in. Okay. Devin designed and built reactors for atomic submarines. He had a security clearance with the government. Okay. I was a site supervisor for an environmental company. I dealt with radioactive PCBs, you name it, I dealt with it. Anyhow, so everything was good. And I said to him, just offhandedly, I said, by the way, sir, I said, where do you keep your black helicopters? His whole demeanor changed. He said, we don't have black helicopters. I said, really? I saw some last night. There was one over my house. He goes, we don't have black helicopters. He told there was a sergeant, I guess it was a Air Force sergeant there. He was wearing it looked like a light blue shirt with the blue stripes. He told him, escort these two gentlemen off the base. Move along. That summer, I'm in the house. My first wife, she's out at her mother's with our kids, and I had one of my children there. John Jr. was at the house with me. And I'm in the house doing dishes because I don't want to be in trouble with the wife at the time because, I'm doing the dishes. So I didn't live far from the track. So sometimes the house would shake a little bit when the train would go by. But this house started shaking a lot more than that. So I said to my son, John, he was 6 or 7 at the time. I said, John, go outside, see what that is. He comes running back in the house, says, Daddy, there's a helicopter over our house. I went, what? I said, grab the camera. I ran outside. There's a black helicopter hovering just above our tree in our backyard. The side door's open. There's a guy sitting here, he had a helmet on. He's filming my house. As soon as my son came out with the camera, that helicopter veered off and took off.
Wow.
Right. Okay. I mean, yeah. People that get close to the truth usually get bothered. I told you I have 2 men in black that see me in high school. I got all this stuff going on. Okay. But do I stop doing it? Nah.
It surely is just all coincidental, right?
Oh, yeah, it's coincidental. All coincidental and stuff. But, like I said, we've been on cases before, like I said. And, I mean, a lot of this stuff people might not believe because this is out of their experience, out of their comfort zone, okay? But things like this do happen to good people. There was a case years ago, I believe it was in Texas, Cash Landrum case, where a mother and I think it was their daughter were in a car, and they approached and they saw a diamond-shaped UFO hovering, and it emitted such heat, it actually burned some of the paint, melted some of the paint off the car, and they ended up with cancer from it. But they also saw black helicopters around it, okay, escorting it. Okay, these kind of things do happen to people. Travis Walton's case, okay, the group I belonged to was contacted by Paramount Pictures back when that movie was just about to air, and they asked our group to endorse the movie. We said we would do it on one condition. we were allowed to have a display, and it was the movie was going to be aired in Monroeville, PA, which is outside just around Pittsburgh, on a Thursday. So we agreed to endorse the movie, which we did, Fire in the Sky, the Travis Walton abduction case. And I had pictures of my UFOs, the 7 pictures, and other people in the group had stuff there too. There's probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 of us that actually went to the viewing. It was an early viewing. No one else had seen it. And I had people offer me $5,000 a piece for my pictures, and I refused to sell them. Why? Because I can't make a UFO appear again. That's why. I'm not going to get rid of my pictures. I actually have the film of it. And by the way, the pictures were taken with a 400 film. Okay. Normally I carry the camera in my vehicle because I don't hunt with a weapon anymore. I don't do that. I only hunt with a camera. And I also took family pictures and stuff back when my kids were little. They're all grown up with kids of their own now. But like I said, my first wife, she's gone. She passed away. But now my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they also saw a sickle-shaped UFO up near that ridge as well. Pretty good size too. Excuse me for a second. My granddaughter wanted to put her phone on charge, and I had the charger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like I said, we got the kids tonight. 2 of them. We have 5 great grandkids. But I'm going to take my one great grandson fishing on Saturday. First time he'll be fishing. But
oh, nice.
If he doesn't behave, I'll just throw him to the sharks. But anyhow, no, there's no sharks. But anyhow, so these things happen. Okay. I was on another case where our director said that there was a rash of black helicopters flying over Menneson, PA, which is in Westmoreland. Well, let's see. Yeah, it's in Westmoreland County. So, but I went down there. I didn't see any helicopters, but a lot of people had seen them and stuff. So these black helicopters seem to appear when there are UFO sightings or things of this nature. I also want to tell you this. That Highway 43 I told you about, my brother and I, my youngest brother Nick and I were talking about this a while back. He used to work at the high school. He was coming home. He worked 3 to 11. He was coming home one night on 43, and there was 2 vehicles wrecked on the highway. And what he thought odd about, he knew the police from the town that we live in at the time. So he got out of his vehicle. He had a truck, and he said, "What's going on?" To the chief of police, Charlie again. And Charlie says, "Well, I don't know what's going on. The state police here and the military's here." He said, my brother's never lied to me. He said he saw something between 7 and 8 feet tall, hairy, being loaded onto a stretcher and picked up and loaded in the back of a military truck and carted off. And the California police officers were not allowed to approach that area. But I guess these 2 cars had hit this thing. So they carted it off. Why? Why did the military get involved in this? What does the military know? We also had heard rumors, we don't know how true they are because they're alleged facts, that during a big fire they had out west, that a Bigfoot was injured severely and the military showed up and took it away. What did they know that we don't know? Again, that begs the question, what does the Bigfoot have to do with UFOs?
Right.
Okay. Only thing I can say is this. I'll let you guys go. I know you, I don't know if you have any more questions or not, but I want to say this. In my experience, the northeastern Bigfoot is not violent by nature generally. It knows human habitations. It can live within human habitations. It is a nomadic creature. It travels along creek beds, because I found tracks on the sides of creek beds and everything else, okay? But it knows human beings. It knows it can't take and kill cattle that we have around here or sheep, because what will happen? Because man will go looking for whatever killed her cattle or sheep, correct? And we have the technology to track something down like that, especially in an area that's so urban as where I live. However, the skunk ape in the south, the Bogey Creek monster, the folk monster, the grassman of Ohio at Salt Fork are more violent. They're more territorial because there's less people. Okay. Out to the Pacific Northwest, you've heard of the Portlock incident.
Yes.
Okay. That creature supposedly killed, tore apart, and mutilated people. They had to abandon that area because of it. There's been other instances of supposedly the Sasquatch creature being very violent, very highly territorial. And I think it's because of the lack of human habitation and its hunting grounds. Okay. So, and these creatures are supposedly seen worldwide: the Yeti in the Himalayas, the Yeren in China,
Right.
the Yowie in Australia, even in South America, for crying out loud, and in England as well. So, yeah, so there's these things that go on all the time. But so anyhow, do you have any more questions?
I just had one thought while you were talking about the hair samples and you said it was clear and you
Right.
talked about the pictures being fuzzy because they move so fast. And then I was just wondering, is a Bigfoot hair special, or maybe it's picking up energy from around the area and maybe that's why it's blurry because of a frequency or magnetic field it's putting out?
Well, I think there's something to it. I actually bought an electromagnetic field detector. I have it right here, in fact. And I did that for two reasons. One, because some people want to believe they come through portals. I don't buy that. But if there's something electromagnetic about it that causes a blurriness in the film that's being used, okay, if it's not high resolution film, you might not get a good picture. But in almost every picture, they seem to be blurry. So something's blurring those pictures, whether it be by the fright or the surprise of the person taking the picture, or maybe these creatures are moving too fast, or the nervousness of the camera operator. I don't know. But there's something to that. And I think there might be something more to what you're saying as well.
Interesting. Well, before you go, we had several other questions, but I think you already answered them as you were talking. So, Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot wants to know your thoughts on Bigfoot's ET or natural to Earth. And I think you said that you thought they were extraterrestrial.
I think they're extraterrestrials. Just it's the same as Mothman. I actually, like I said, I went down. I think Mothman is what people don't know about the Mothman Prophecies movie by John Keel was that I met John Keel at LaGuardia Airport years ago before he passed away, and he said there were UFO sightings in the same time as the Mothman was seen. In fact, Linda Sigmund, who saw the Mothman, said there was a UFO right above where she thinks it came from. That's why I want her to come on your show and stuff and tell you more about it. She's an actual witness to seeing it. But yeah, I do think these cryptids are brought here. The Bigfoot creature, I believe, has been here for a long time. Okay, I think it's perfectly suited to this environment. It's adaptable to almost every environment that it's in. Okay, but here's the thing: I want our viewers to remember. Why do monkeys have long arms?
Why do monkeys have long arms? They use them
Okay.
to walk or to travel when they're on all fours.
Right, but mainly because there are other predators bigger and more powerful on the ground, so they can take to the trees. Bigfoot has long arms, which indicates to me that wherever it came from, it wasn't the top predator, so it had to climb trees. We do know young Bigfoot climbing trees. They had to learn that from something and for some reason, okay, for protection or for food, sourcing for food. So wherever they came from, I don't believe they're indigenous to the world. I think they come from a world that's more arboreal, more forested, like our Pacific Northwest, and they're not the top predator there, but they're the top predator here, and they're intelligent. We know they use tools as well, rocks to break open muscles up in the Pacific Northwest. They can run down a deer and break a deer's legs and neck. So if they're faster than a deer, and I know how fast deer can go, they're faster than any rabbit I ever saw.
Right.
They have super speed. So again, I mean, if you're out in those areas out that way, the Kentucky Bigfoot, I believe, is ET. I believe it's an ET of some kind. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's just my hypothesis. Okay. I said it a long time ago before everybody else started talking. I'm jumping the bandwagon too. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I've been doing this just about longer than anybody I know. Anybody else have anything to say?
Polly again wants to know, do you believe in Bob Lazar, and what's your thoughts on Elizondo's book?
I do believe in Bob Lazar, okay, and I believe what he said is true. He knows a lot about the craft, what he calls the sports models and stuff. And I think Elizondo, though, I hate got to say this about Elizondo. I think there's a possibility he might be working, like playing both ends against the middle. I don't know for sure. I haven't read his book yet, but I think he's playing both ends against the middle.
Yeah, I like Bob a lot, and I know Jim Goodall's a good friend of mine, and he's a good friend of Bob Lazar, and he says he believes him. So I'm tending to be that way. I only hear, other people's stories about Bob. I've never met him or talked to him. And then Elizondo, I liked him at the beginning when he was like kind of the grassroots coming up. But then when he got involved in the government and stuff, I kind of think you're right. I think he's playing both sides of the fence.
Well, yeah, because if he was involved in everything he said he was involved in, then why didn't he come forward when he had the chance with some actual proof? Okay, so yeah, that's the question I beg to be answered. Okay, and the other thing I want you to know that I'm also friends with Nick Pope and these guys like this and stuff too. And I mean, these are people that are serious about this business. Okay, other governments are come forward. Mexican government openly acknowledges them. The Belgian government openly acknowledges the existence of Bigfoot. Japan openly acknowledges the existence of UFOs. Okay, they all acknowledge it.
Right.
So yeah, yeah. Anyhow, like that's everything you want to talk about tonight. That's fine with me. But
yeah, I think this would be a good place to stop. And if you'd like, we can have you back for another show and talk about some other stuff or continue to dig into this subject. I love it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can tell you a lot more. Like I said, I could talk for hours. My wife will be mad at me if I stay on any longer. But yeah, I'd like to do this again. So please contact me.
All right, I will. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We enjoyed having you. And I know our chat has loved it. They've been asking questions and been talking amongst themselves about stuff. And it's just been a great show.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you later then. You have a good evening.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're leaving.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I think I got to all your questions, or Bob in an about way kind of answered and talked about what you guys were asking. If I didn't get to a specific question, I'm sorry, because I just love talking to John, and it was a great time. And I was so fascinated and trying to pay attention to what he was saying so I could keep track of where the show was going. So thank you very much for being here, and be sure to tune in Sunday at 4 p.m. Central, same time as this one, because we're going to have Brown Dwarf on, and we're going to be talking about the weird stuff that happens out in California, out where he does his investigating, whether it's Bigfoot or paranormal stuff and some weird stuff. And he says he's got a lot of neat information that he wants to share with us. So look forward to that this Sunday at 4 p.m. Central. So we're going to have Brown Dwarf, and it's going to be a very good show. You don't want to miss that. So I'll just say thank you, everybody in chat. We love you. Hopefully Jane will be able to be with us, talk to Brown Dwarf. I know she wanted to be here tonight, but wasn't feeling very good because of the seasonal sinus and allergy stuff that happens to us when the farmers are getting out in the fields and all that stuff happens. So say some prayers for her so she'll get better. And you've seen her in chat tonight, so she was at least acknowledging people in chat. So thank you for being in chat, Jane. And so we will see you Sunday. So don't forget Brown Dwarf on Sunday at 4 p.m. Central. So saying that, I love you. Keep looking up. And as Jane always says, keep your vibrations high. So we'll see you next time. Love you.